Welcome to this edition of The District. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 6. On today's show, we will be joined by Doug Shipman, the Chief Executive Officer of the new National Center for Civil and Human Rights, located in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. We have a great show planned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the District. We have a great show planned for you today. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 6. Joining us today is Doug Shipman, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. Doug Shipman, welcome to the District.
Thanks, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Doug, I am so pleased that you are here today. So would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and how it came that you are the Chief Executive Officer for the Center for Civil and Human Rights?
Well, I grew up in Arkansas, came to Emory to go to college, and got very interested in issues of the civil rights movement. Took a course actually from Robert Franklin when he was a professor at Emory before he went on to be president of Morehouse. And when I came back to Atlanta a few years later, I worked with a consulting firm that had helped Mayor Shirley Franklin on a number of big projects like the Beltline and court reorganization. And she asked me to do a feasibility study about the new Civil Rights Museum. That's what it was known as back in 2005. So I did that for about a year and a half, and then she asked me to give her 1 year of work on setting up the center, and 7 years later we opened the Center for Civil and Human Rights. And so it really combined my passion for civil rights history and Atlanta's special role with what it means to set up a new organization like the center.
Well, would you tell us what are the mission and vision of the Center for Civil and Human Rights?
Well, the center is really aimed at telling the story of the legacy of the civil rights movement to those who did not live through it. Only 25% of Americans can possibly remember the I Have a Dream speech because most of us, me included, weren't alive. And so the center really takes the legacy and brings it forward. And it also then combines it with contemporary human rights issues. There are so many movements today, both nationally and globally, that take the civil rights movement as an inspiration, but work on issues of women, or issues of immigration, issues of freedom for certain minority groups, whatever the case may be. We wanted to showcase those issues as well. So we have not only a historical mission, but we have a contemporary mission to really educate and explore around those human rights issues that are happening all around us.
So what can a visitor expect when they expect to experience when they come to the center?
Well, there are three major exhibition galleries in the center. The first is the Morehouse College King Collection Gallery. This is a gallery that rotates among the papers of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. These are the same papers that were acquired a few years ago by the community. Morehouse owns them and we display them. And you get to see sermons, speeches, writings of Dr. King, handwritten, typed, from famous moments, from the letter from Birmingham jail to the Drum Major Instinct sermon. Secondly, there's a series of galleries designed by George C. Wolfe, who's a theater director and film director, around the legacy of the civil rights movement. And here you get to really be enveloped in the history of the civil rights movement. For example, there's a lunch counter that you can sit in and you can experience what it would have been like to be a protester. There's a film about the March on Washington that really gives you a sense of what it was like to attend the march. You get to meet the people of the civil rights movement, many of whom we've forgotten because they weren't famous. They were the grassroots soldiers. And so you get that whole series of galleries telling that story around civil rights. And then there's a whole floor dedicated to contemporary human rights issues. And here you meet activists from Guatemala, from Russia, from China, from the United States, working on all kinds of issues. We also have art dedicated to famous human rights activists. And then we have interactive tables like big iPads that you can explore different issues, whether it be LGBT rights or poverty or issues of women. And you can basically understand not only the issues, but the things that you can do to impact those issues. So I think a visitor walks out of the center being inspired, discovering things they didn't know before, and also being moved that this history is incredibly relevant for the kinds of issues we're working on today.
So why is the Center for Civil and Human Rights located right here in Atlanta, Georgia?
Well, there are a few reasons why it ended up in Atlanta. One, many of the visionaries, Evelyn Lowry, Andrew Young, John Lewis, Juanita Abernathy, who envisioned this place, are in Atlanta. They said we should have it here. Second, obviously, the legacy of the civil rights movement in Atlanta is so rich that having an institution like this makes sense. And third, the Coca-Cola Company, under the leadership of Neville Isdell and Ingrid Saunders Jones, donated the piece of property next to the aquarium in the World of Coke on which the center sits. And so bringing the center to that rich tourist area that's downtown next to Centennial Park, really folks felt like this was a legacy that we should showcase to the world, and there was no better place to do it than right there. And then the rest of the pieces came together, the fundraising, the artifacts, the artists, all of those things. But I think at the end of the day, the world still expects that Atlanta will lead on the issues of civil and human rights, and that's why the center is here, because this is a place of leadership.
Why Atlanta? Why? How is this center different from other centers? I know that there are centers in other cities that are human rights and civil rights museums. So how is this center different from those?
Sure. Well, obviously, this is the only place that you can see on a daily basis the Morehouse College King collection. So it's the only place that you can see a handwritten speech or a handwritten note or a briefcase from Dr. King. Second, the others that are most well known, the facility in Birmingham, the museum in Memphis, in Cincinnati, they are dedicated to specific moments. Birmingham is next to the church that was bombed in the park where the dogs and hoses were turned on the protesters. Memphis is at the Lorraine Motel where King was murdered. And so this is not a memorial in that same sense. This is really a forward-looking place that takes the stories but then says, what do we do with them today? And so I think that makes it quite unique. And then we've been told by our human rights partners, we've partnered with Human Rights First and Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and others, that this is the first truly human rights museum that exists in the United States. There's no other place that on a daily basis talks about global issues of human rights in the way that we do. And so I think that's very unique, that visitors will be able to touch issues that they really can't in any other institution.
Well, I heard you mention briefly galleries. How often do the galleries change at the center?
Well, we wanted the center to be fresh, to be relevant, to have the ability to change so that visitors will see new things when they come back. The Morehouse College King Papers Collection Gallery changes every 4 months, so you have completely new artifacts every 4 months. We have a temporary gallery space that changes every 4 months that showcases photography and paintings. We also have the ability to change almost all the human rights galleries on an annual basis. So over the course of a few months, different areas of the human rights galleries will change. So over 2/3 of the center can change in any 1 year. And so it's a new, fresh take on issues as they emerge. The civil rights story stays the same because it's so powerful and so special that that's a story we think that every visitor should have the same experience in.
Well, Doug, you are really giving us a lot of good information, and I know I certainly am learning a whole lot about the center, and I hope that our viewers are learning about the center as well. Thank you so much for that. We will take a short break, and when we return, we will continue our discussion with Doug Shipman, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. You are watching The District. Stay tuned, there's more to come. Welcome back to The District, everyone. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 6. If you just tuned into the show, we're having a discussion with Doug Shipman, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. Doug, before the break, you were talking about how often the galleries change. You were telling us about how this museum is different from other museums. Could you talk a little bit about the attendance? What type of attendance do you have at the center?
Sure, we've had incredible attendance. Tens of thousands of folks have come and seen us since we opened. And what's interesting to me is if you walk into the center on any day, you'll see all kinds of people. You may see a family walking through, and the older folks in the family will be telling stories from their own experiences around the civil rights movement. We have a lot of international visitors. Yesterday, the former president of Mozambique came to see us, which is an incredible thing. We have a lot of younger people in groups who come, school-age groups, college groups, and they will often see something and then talk among themselves and really have their own sort of a way in which they experience it. We have a lot of seniors. And sometimes there are even special folks who come. We've had freedom riders come and find their own pictures in the center, and we have pictures of them standing next to their mug shots, for instance. We have those who were at Morehouse and Spelman, who are part of the Atlanta student movement, who have come. We've had some of the more famous folks come. And so on any particular day, I think what's amazing is that you see people who are emotionally connecting to these stories, sometimes because they know them and live them, sometimes because they're brand new. But reaching people in that way is such a thrilling thing to see after working on this for so long.
Wow. How does the center address current issues that are not shown in the exhibits?
Sure. We have an event space that is available to have daily or nightly events. And so we have a whole set of programming that we do. We have a relationship with CNN where we bring panelists nationally on topics such as sports and society, or film, or poverty and education. We have a whole series of partnerships that we do with community organizations. For instance, Atlanta Celebrates Photography brings speakers to us as part of their work. Living Walls, the Street Art Festival, brings up speakers as part of their work. We have relationships with the Alliance Theater, with Theatrical Outfit. We do a lot of book signings, book tours, films, etc. And so we have a whole series of programs that explore things as they happen, sometimes in partnership and sometimes on our own. We also have a series of things we do elsewhere. So we have a Women and Girls Collaborative that we do with Spelman and with Agnes Scott. We have a series of things that we've done at Morehouse around leadership in the King Collection. So really the center is more than just what happens with a daily basis with a visitor. It's really trying to be a beacon that explores a lot of different issues in a lot of different ways so that no matter what your interest is, you find a way to connect with the center.
Well, you mentioned this briefly, but could you talk about, is this center family-centered?
You know, this is a question that we ask ourselves a lot as we were going through the design process. Can we make this relevant to a 15-year-old, to a 10-year-old, to a 6-year-old? And in fact, Atlanta Parent Magazine came out with a story where the reporter brought her 6-year-old daughter with her to the center. And she wrote this 2-page article about how it was an incredible experience for her 6-year-old, because her 6-year-old found ways to relate to the stories. She found the stories that are about kids. She found the stories that were about famous people that she had seen. She watched a lot of the video. And so it is very family friendly. I think obviously different ages take these stories in different ways. The younger you are, the more it's about, well, I couldn't have been with my friend, or why would somebody not like my friend because they believe this or because they look like this? And then as somebody gets older, they get more sophisticated. But we've found that ages all the way down to 5 can experience the center in very, very deep ways. And our education curriculum guides, which you can find online, start at grade 3. So it really is for young and old alike.
Well, that sort of leads me into my next question, which is, what types of programs are available for school groups, for teachers, for parents of school-age children, even PTA?
So we have the ability to host groups and to do special things with groups. So if a group wants to come, we have the ability for our volunteers and docents to greet them, to guide them through their experience, to have a discussion afterward. On our website, we have a family guide which showcases how a family can go through the center together and activities for kids of various ages. We have education guides that can be downloaded for teachers that are both pre and post visit for grades 3 through 12. And then we also have unique programs that we run for college age students, again with resources pre and post visit. All of our education materials are aligned with Georgia standards, so they tap into what teachers are going to be teaching at any one time. So all of those resources are available, in addition to the fact that all of our volunteers and docents have been trained to engage our visitors in unique ways. So you'll have a group of young people going through, and you may have a docent step in and really have education on the spot. And we've thought about how that works. And so there are a lot of resources available.
Are there special programs or discounts for seniors?
There are special discounts for seniors. We have a special ticket price for seniors in which they can get a discount off of our ticket price. We also have a lot of groups of seniors who come to the center as groups, so that can be scheduled. They can have a special experience around the exhibitions. And so we are trying very hard to engage seniors as well as in oral histories. So when you end your experience at the center, there's a video booth where you can leave your reflections for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we are seeing those and following up with folks who have unique stories that haven't been told. So we'll be over time collecting new oral histories from folks and really discovering new stories that have never been heard.
That's phenomenal. So how can the public become more involved with the center aside from just visiting the center?
Sure. Well, there are a lot of folks from the public who are our volunteers. Every day there are volunteers in the center. You can sign up and be trained in various elements of volunteering with us. You can become a member, like a lot of different institutions. You can become a member of the center, which gets you unlimited access to visit, as well as special behind-the-scenes programs, receptions, other things that happen throughout the year. You can also become a part of one of our programming elements. So we have different programs that happen, and we need volunteers to help organize those, whether they be around our women's issues or other issues that we handle. So there are lots of ways that the public can be involved on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in the life of the center.
Great. So can outside groups such as corporations or individuals hold special events at the center?
Absolutely. This was a key part of what we wanted to do, was to not only do things ourselves, but to be a convener and a host for others. So we have in both our special event space and in our lobby space, as well as the entire institution, the ability to host events. And we do host social events, corporate receptions and such. Trainings are very popular, so people bringing their training to the center, as well as partnering together to bring certain kinds of programs that others want to bring, whether it be a speaker or such. And so we have the ability to do that. All of that information is available for folks.
So I understand that you have ambassadors at the center. Could you tell us a little bit about how the ambassador program works?
Sure. So we know there are a lot of people in this community who have incredible stories to tell. And so we have reached out to dozens of folks on various topics and have asked them if they would be willing to come in to speak to an education group, to speak on a certain event, to speak on a certain program about what it was like to be at the March on Washington, what it was like to be in SNCC, what it was like to be a refugee who ended up in the United States from a war-torn country. So we have a whole group of people that we can engage in that storytelling. And they may be in the exhibit, so you may go to the Freedom Rider bus and there will be a Freedom Rider. They may be a keynote speaker. They may be somebody who has a roundtable discussion. But that program will continue to grow over time, and I think it's going to be a very unique way that we bring community voices into the life of the center and connect them with people who want and need to hear their stories.
Doug, tell us about the unique design of that building.
Yes. So we were very fortunate to have a large architectural competition. Phil Freelon partnered with HOK to be the architect. Phil Freelon is an award-winning African-American architect from North Carolina, whose wife is Nina Freelon, the jazz singer. It is a green building. We will be LEED certified, and it represents two hands that really embody civil and human rights together. It's a very unique design in that there are lots of different panels on the outside, as well as an incredible water feature that's on Ivan Allen Boulevard that was designed by Larry Kirkland. And so when you come to the center, you see that it doesn't look like anything else. It has this wonderfully curved shape. And then when you come into the lobby, it's a two-story glass lobby that looks out onto Pemberton Place. And so it's full of light and it's bright. And I think that's really important because these stories ultimately are inspirational. And we wanted a building that was inspirational. And Phil Freelon and his team put together something that I hope is quite iconic for the city and really embodies the storytelling from the very beginning.
Well, Doug, I actually was a part of the opening ceremony for when the museum opened, and it was an incredible and amazing experience for me. Well, Doug, would you please tell our viewers how they can learn more information about the center, how they can be in touch
Sure.
with the center?
Well, we have lots of ways to get in touch with us. We have a website, www.civilandhumanrights.org. We have a Facebook page. We're on Twitter a lot. Our handle is CTR, the number 4, CHR.
Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us today. I've learned so much about the center. I hope that our viewers have as well, and really appreciate the job that you're doing over there.
Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you. When we return, I will share my closing thoughts. We will be right back. Welcome back to the District. I am Joan Garner, your Fulton County Commissioner for District 6. Today, we were joined by Doug Shipman, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. The National Center for Civil and Human Rights, located in downtown Atlanta, Georgia, is an engaging cultural attraction that connects the American civil rights movement to today's global human rights movements. The National Center for Civil and Human Rights' purpose is to create a safe space for visitors to explore the fundamental rights of all human beings. The experience should leave visitors inspired and empowered to join the ongoing dialogue about human rights in their communities. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, an individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. I want to thank my guest, Doug Shipman, for the information he provided us today, and thank you for joining us on The District. That's our show for today. Feel free to contact my District 6 office anytime by calling us at 404-612-8226. You can email us at district6@fultoncountyga.gov, tweet with us at ComJoanGarner, and of course, friend us on Facebook. Until we meet again, I am your District 6 Fulton County Commissioner, Joan Garner. Thanks for watching The District. Comments and opinions expressed by guests of the district are presented for the purpose of discussion only. No endorsements by Fulton County government are intended and none should be presumed.